and welcome. You're watching NewsX VaKu. I'm Megha Sharma, and on this brand new episode are a bunch of the Indian diaspora members that are making our country and our countrymen proud. First up on the show is Sameer Banerjee, the 17-year-old Indian-American tennis prodigy who clinched the junior Wimbledon singles boys title just a few weeks ago. Here's his story. He's a 17-year-old Indian-American tennis prodigy who won the junior Wimbledon boys singles 2021 title.
No, it's great that I've been able to reach the highest level in junior tennis in the world, and I think it motivates me a lot to try to crack the men's tour.
He is the fourth Indian to have won the prestigious championship.
Obviously, with my Indian roots, it is very important to me, and even in the US, I live in an area with a lot of Indians.
NewsX proudly presents the VaKu Diaspora Dialogue with Sameer Banerjee. Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX VaKu. My name is Megha Sharma, and joining me on the broadcast is an Indian-American tennis player who has shaken the entire world around him. He won the junior Wimbledon boys just a few weeks ago. It's good to have you, Sameer, on the broadcast with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
First of all, congratulations for this massive feat. You're the third Indian to have won the Wimbledon junior boys, and the entire country and the entire Indian community overseas as well as celebrating it with huge gusto.
Thank you. Wow, that's great. That's great.
It has you. I've read your interviews. I've seen your interviews. Now you are quite the rage over here in India. I mean, every single Indian celebrating your achievement, your feat. You started off back when you were 5 years old. How did this entire journey of becoming a tennis player, dreaming about becoming a tennis player, this tennis prodigy, and finally successful in the stepping stone of achieving the title that you have?
Yeah, no, I mean, it took a lot of work. Obviously, I just started playing recreationally when I was young, and then I had to work up the age groups, the levels. I went from like local tournaments to sectional to national, and now international. So it's great that I've been able to reach the highest level in junior tennis in the world, and I think it motivates me a lot to try to crack the men's tour.
Well, absolutely. And you have quite a few tournaments that are upcoming as well, and you're going and putting your best foot forward, and all the best with that. But what do you make of all this sudden adulation that is coming your way? You're getting this recognition, you're getting this fame. How does it feel like?
I mean, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's very different from what I'm used to. I'm usually not the most outgoing. I usually try to keep to myself. So when people come up to me on the street or recognize me and talk to me, I think it makes me branch out. And I'm pretty grateful. I think I've been hearing this pressure is a privilege, and to have this pressure and have this fame, I think it's not everyone has it. So I think it's very good.
What was the first reaction of your parents? They are both of Indian origin. They migrated to the United States, had a tough life, built a legacy for you. How are things with them? What do you have to say?
No, they were very happy. I mean, my parents, they usually get pretty nervous. My mom is pretty nervous when I play, and my dad is just very focused on my match. So they weren't watching together. My dad was watching by himself, and my mom actually didn't watch the match live. She watched it after. But no, I mean, they were thrilled. Obviously, they were very surprised because they didn't think I would be able to get there. It was kind of a run out of the blue, but I think they're taking everything in stride, and they're very happy with how it's going. And yeah, no, they're thrilled.
Were your parents not at the tennis grounds when the match was happening? Was the pressure too much for them?
No, they were back home. I didn't go with my parents. I just went with my uncle. But my parents were back home the entire time I was there. But yeah, no, they were definitely nervous. I think after I kind of found a groove, they settled down a bit.
So can you talk to us about your roots in India? How have those roots impacted you as a human being, as an Indian American who's now building this massive career for himself in tennis?
Yeah, no, obviously with my Indian roots, is very important to me. And even in the US, I live in an area with a lot of Indians. So it's pretty cool. So I'm around them a lot, and I mean I love Indian food. Both my parents are Indian, so it's like obviously it's a big part of me. So I mean, it's yeah, I'm really touched by how many Indians have shown me support. India, even though I don't represent India, they've been very supportive, and people who live in India apparently they're very happy for me. So I really appreciate it.
Isn't it also a massive responsibility on your shoulders now that you have gone ahead and won this huge title, the Wimbledon Juniors Boys title? Expectations are going to be manifold for you.
Yeah, obviously the pressure will be more. There will be higher expectations, but I think like everything around me is changing. But I'll try to stay the same. I'll just try to keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully keep playing good tennis. But yeah, like I said before, pressure is a privilege. So I think I enjoy feeling the pressure.
Mm-hmm. What are your future plans immediately in the next 6 months? How long till you actually find yourself a space in the big tennis tournaments that happen season by season across the world?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm gonna finish my year of juniors this year. This is my last year, and then also throw a bunch of pro events in and see how I'm doing, and then yeah, I think I'm going to be playing a lot more pro events and just trying to see if I can play at that level. And if I can, that's great. And if not, then I'll probably go to college.
Okay, all right. There's a lot of news with regards to a lot of athletes, including the name that came out of Simone Biles. She decided to let go of the Olympic tournament in the middle because she was not able to deal with the stress. She was not able to deal with the mental pressure. Then Ben Stokes was taken an indefinite break from cricket due to ensure that his mental well-being is intact. What do you make of the kind of pressure and the mental pressure that athletes, tennis players, Olympians at this point of time who are playing in Tokyo Olympics 2020, the pressure is immense. What do you make of the balance that needs to be brought about when it comes to the mental well-being, physical well-being, and giving your top performance on the field?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think every athlete is different. Every athlete copes with wins and losses differently, and I think in Simone's case, in individual sports, I think it's even more tough because it's all on you, and especially, and I played Wimbledon. It wasn't as big as the Olympics. The Olympics, you're carrying you're supporting your nation, you're representing your nation, so it's a lot more pressure. But obviously, I think if you're not feeling comfortable, if you're not in the right headspace, then I don't think you'll be able to compete your best. So I respect the decision of whoever would take a break from sports to.
All right. I wish you all the best, Sameer Banerjee. Thank you so much for joining me on NewsX VaKu. And I wish and hope, and so does the entire country and the Indian community across the globe, that you keep getting us these laurels, you keep winning, and may you set your goals higher, perhaps to win the US Open and the Wimbledon and several other of these seasonal tournaments that are the highlight of the tennis arena.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right. The next guest on the show is Kriti Upadhyay. She is a research associate for the Wadhwani Chair in the US-India Policy Studies at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C. She specializes in the US-India economic ties and the Indian federal economic reforms. Here's a look at her story. She is a research associate for the Wadhwani Chair in the US-India Policy Studies at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C.
I was lucky enough that I got some scholarship and I was able to come to the US and study here. And yeah, it's just been 1 year since I passed out of my master's, and it's been great, just the opportunities here, the fact that I could stay back, even though it hasn't been easy, at least for immigrants.
She specializes in US-India economic ties and Indian federal economic reforms.
Especially at CSIS, waking up every day and doing what you absolutely love is an honor, and it's a privilege. The fact that, whatever small way that you can.
NewsX proudly presents the VaKu Diaspora Dialogue with Kriti Upadhyay.
Hello and welcome to VaKu Vasudeva Kutumbakam, a brand new show on NewsX. Joining me on the broadcast is a very special guest, Kriti Upadhyay. She's a research associate, Wadhwani Chair at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Her focal points being US-India Policy Studies Center. In fact, US-India Policy Studies at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, that is CSIS, Washington, D.C. Welcome on the show, Kriti. How are things going on in the United States? First of all, in Washington, D.C., the pandemic obviously going ahead and showcasing its entire fury, and the inoculation process right now going on.
Yes, absolutely. As you know, things haven't been the best lately in the DC with, the violence and so on. Presently, we're under a curfew, at least till the inauguration will be under a curfew. But, hopefully with us, we've been working from home. We've been trying to stay safe, not going out, especially with the cases which are also rising at this time. So it's not the DC that we're used to, but we're just thankful that, we're safe.
Okay, all right, good to know. But Kriti, my purpose of interviewing you over here was the fact that you belonging to the Indian diaspora, you're working at the United States in Washington, D.C. and taking forward the economic reforms with regards to US and India. The US, Indo-US policy is something that you are very closely watching, working on as well. How have things changed in the last decade? How are things likely to change in the next decade, especially for India being at the forefront of this entire paradigm shift that the world is witnessing vis-a-vis China, vis-a-vis the Indian Ocean developments that are taking place today?
Well, I think if we're talking just about US-India relationship, then it has definitely come a long way, especially in the last decade or so. If you look at our defense and strategic relationship more particularly, then I think we've made some of the most significant strides in this period. Just 2 decades back, our defense trade was close to zero. Today, we're looking at defense trade over $20 billion, a very impressive defense trade pipeline, as well as the fact that we've concluded some really important defense agreements, the foundational agreements. I'm sure you've heard of ISA, LMOA, BECA, COMACASA. I mean, these agreements are so crucial in also enabling, further defense cooperation as well as more defense trade. So I think on the defense and strategic side, we've made some significant strides. And I think that irrespective of who comes to power, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, that trajectory will continue for some time now. If you look at the Indo-Pacific, India is now a crucial member of, of US's Indo-Pacific strategy. Just yesterday, the US declassified its Indo-Pacific strategy, and everybody in the India lane, especially folks like us, it was really impressive to see that it's not just something that the US says outwardly that a stronger India is good for the US, but it's something that's part of the core US foreign policy. On the commercial side, US-India trade in general and US-India economic and business ties, things have been encouraging, but perhaps not as much as they could be. As you know, during the Trump administration, on both sides, there was a tendency to be driven by our respective trade deficit. So for the US, it was its trade deficit with India, and with India, its trade deficit with the world. So that led to a more zero-sum approach towards trade. We saw US taking off GSP preferences for India, India hitting back with counter tariffs and so on. So there have been some trade tensions. There are issues that we don't necessarily see eye to eye on US-India trade. But given all that, I still think that, we've made some significant strides. And with President-elect Biden coming to office, on the trade front, I do see some good news. I see that there's going to be more ability to cooperate rather than confront.
Okay, all right. I think that's what the sentiment is back in India as well, with regards to the Biden administration that is going to take over in the next 1 week. And but okay, let's also try to understand your personal career trajectory. You've gone ahead and you studied in India, studied in Delhi. You've done your BA in political science from Hindu College at the Delhi University, MA in International Affairs from the School of International Service at American University. Was it always your dream to go ahead and take out initiative and focus on the economic policy reforms when it comes to India versus the world? At this point of time, incidentally being United States, because you are working in Washington, D.C., you've also, at the end of the day, been enthused about, youth programs, education programs between India and United States. If you could tell us what inclined you towards this growth trajectory that you have taken forward.
Well, that's an interesting question. I've always been interested in, political issues, Indian diplomacy, Indian foreign policy for as much as back I can think of. That's all I read, being back in 8th standard and reading Ramchandra Guha and so on. It was almost, like one thing led to the other. So I was back in school, and as is common, we used to do a lot of MUNs and debating. In fact, in 12th standard is when I came back to Delhi, and all I did was, debates and MUNs, which also sort of gets you into the whole groove of knowing more about foreign policy, right? Yeah. When you go to MUNs, all you can think of is actually going to New York and maybe seeing the UN building from outside. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much where I was. And then, when I was thinking about doing my when I was thinking of doing my undergrad, there was only one option for me, at least internally for me, it was doing political science. And I remember that I got into Stephens, and everybody was like, you should go to Stephens, but Stephens didn't have political science. So in fact, I went to Hindu. And I'm really glad that I did. Hindu is like teeming with so many opportunities. It's such an open atmosphere. Not only school, even outside, I learned so much. I did I did a great project that my professor hooked me up with, with another professor, a researcher, actually an anthropologist in the US at Bennington College, Professor Noha Coburn. So, I already started working with academics outside when I was still in Hindu College. I started working with, with folks like at India Policy Forum. You had folks, you had already these academics that I was working with, like Rakesh Sinha, who's now in the Rajya Sabha. I was working on government contracting projects. So I was already working when I was in my undergrad. And then after my undergrad, everybody was like, well, what you have to do is study international affairs. Sadly, in India, we still don't have as much international affairs. There are only two places that you can really go to. It's either JNU or Jadavpur. So, I was lucky enough that I got some scholarship, and I was able to come to the US and study here. And it's just been 1 year since I passed out of my master's, and it's been great, just the opportunities here, the fact that I could stay back, even though it hasn't been easy, at least for immigrants lately, to, stay back here. A lot of my friends had to go back to India or wherever they came from. But I think I've been really lucky and blessed in that I've been given all these opportunities that I have, especially at CSIS, waking up every day and doing what you absolutely love is an honor, and it's a privilege. The fact that, whatever small way that you can, if you can, move the needle on policy in any way and make two of the most greatest nations in the world come together, even if I have a really small role to play in that, I think it's an intensely satisfying experience.
All right. Thank you, Priti, for joining us on this very special broadcast. Keep doing the tremendous work that you're going ahead and doing for India, for Indians across the world. We are very proud of you. And we hope that Indian diaspora like you bring a good name for our country world across. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Megha. Such an honor and pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right, and finally, we have Rekha Kaul, who is an Associate Professor and Dean International at Curtin University in Perth, Australia. She has researched extensively on STEM education in classroom and school learning environments. She is an Associate Professor and Dean International at Curtin University in Perth, Australia.
The place where I'm working now, it is, of course, it's my passion. Research is my passion and teaching is my passion.
She has researched extensively on STEM education in classroom learning environments.
Indians are doing reasonably well, very better than most other migrant communities. Indians are hardworking. They are making an impact.
NewsX proudly presents the VaKu Diaspora Dialogue with Rekha Kaul.
Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX VaKu. I'm Megha Sharma, and joining me on the broadcast is a special guest, Rekha Kaul. Now, she's the Associate Professor, Dean International at Curtin University in Perth, Australia. And Rekha is going to break down for us her journey from India, from Kashmir, to how she landed up in Perth in Australia finally. Welcome on the show, Rekha.
Thank you, Megha. Thank you for having me on the show. And my journey, I was in academia while in Kashmir, and we had to leave Kashmir because of the political disturbance there. Like, we left for a winter holiday and could never go back. And a few years down the time, I couldn't fit in the heat of India, and one night it was a discussion between me and my husband. Delhi or Denmark doesn't make any difference if it's not Kashmir, because for us, home was Kashmir, living in homes, not in apartments, what Delhi offered us. And a few years in Southeast Asia, and eventually ended up in Australia, which was a choice made sort of. There was not a calling from other Western cultures, and we ended up here, and it's home. I think we chose Perth as a home after living in Adelaide, the other city in Australia, for a very short, brief time. Brought up our young family here, and I don't think I have any complaints. I see myself as a global citizen now. The place where I'm working now, it is, of course, it's my passion. Research is my passion and teaching is my passion. But it allowed me to travel around the world.
Wow.
And I see myself as global citizen and accepted by the rest of the world.
How long have you been in Australia, in Perth especially? And so you talk about traveling across the world. If you could share those experiences with us as well.
How long have we been here? It's been more than 2 decades in Perth. Traveling, I did travel to different cities in Asia, Southeast Asia, Americas, Europe. Where else do I? Africa. Mm-hmm. So I would say all the continents.
Nations, and that led you to travel to all these cities and countries and continents? Was it because of the fact that you wanted to go ahead and be the teaching professors or the faculties across the globe, and that helped you bring about a conglomeration of the knowledge base that you have now, those hold, and then also for the fact that expertise and experience that you go ahead and bring to all these cultures?
Yes, I think whenever I traveled, I took my experiences there, because most of the time it was for educational conferences, or I going to conduct educational courses there. But wherever interaction happens, it is a two-way learning. So it was not only me taking there, I had a lot to learn from them. Our university, Curtin University, where I work, it's in top 200 of the world. Recently, QS ratings have come out, and Curtin University is 187 in the world. So, keeping our high rankings in view, we get students from all over the world. Currently in Curtin University, we have students from around 60 countries, different countries from developed as well as developing world. So we do conduct our, courses there. We have modules and campuses in different parts of the world. Curtin University has campuses in addition to here in Perth and Kalgoorlie. In Western Australia, we have a campus in Malaysia, Singapore, Mauritius, and Dubai. In addition to that, we have many nodes and centers around the world. And I have been traveling. Then we have many international organizations where we have partnerships. Like I am the chair of AERA, American Educational Research Association, their learning environment SIG. It's chair. So every year, other than COVID,
So I would have to bring about that, you've lived over a decade, maybe more than that, in Australia, and then traveled to all these continents and been able to imbibe all the culture and soak in all the culture. Has there been a tectonic shift in terms of how the Americans or the Australians or the Europeans used to look at Indians perhaps some years ago versus the situation that is now?
There has been a gradual change, and I would say in past few years, there's a huge change, especially in academia. We would not get many students from India. Okay. Indians would not choose to come to Australia, but the numbers have drastically increased. I would say India is now number 2 supplier of students to Australia, international students. Then looking at even the immigration numbers, before in my 21st century till 2000, every year nearly 50,000 Indians would immigrate to Australia. But looking at today's numbers, I think it's more than 300,000 each year immigrate out of India to Australia. So there's a huge influx of Indians coming and adopting Australia as home. It's not only international students, even those who migrate here, they choose it as home.
To put across will be of extreme importance, especially on a platform over here that is going to reach out to millions and millions of people who are watching us on the broadcast at this point of time. I thank you, Rekha, for joining me on this very special episode of VaKu. And we'll take your message ahead and obviously go ahead and build further when it comes to the education policy, the education system in our country, going ahead and replicating all the good points that are coming in from Perth, where the university you are teaching in, and several other plethora of universities and schools across the globe, and replicate and utilize the same in our universities, in our school systems, in our education systems as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Megha.
NewsX ITV network have proudly launched the VaKu Diaspora Broadcasting Network.
VaKu DBN will be India's first mainstream platform dedicated to the diaspora community. Help support us, become VaKu patrons at memboro.com/VaKu. You will get the first access to our interviews, make recommendations, merchandise access, ask questions, and get a shout out of thanks on our TV shows.
You can also suggest to us who should get the VaKu Golden Chakra Awards, and also tell us who should get into the VaKu Hall of Fame. Limited memberships are available at 100 rupees per month on Memboro VaKu.
Sign up now, log on to memboro.com/VaKu.